But I'm going to start out just talking a little bit about past life. And the reason I'm talking about it is because past life regression is a topic that is just near and dear to my heart. I've been interested in past lives since I was a child. I've been experiencing them since the 80s, and I've been a practitioner since by the 90s, and now an instructor for well over 25 years instructing certification courses in hypnotherapy and past life regression. So I have tons and tons of information about past lives to share with people, and I could talk for weeks on this topic. So I always have to, figure out a couple of points that I want to make or simply answer the questions that you may already have, because otherwise we could be here for days and days and just get a sleeping bag and just keep going, right? Um, so one of the questions that I get a lot is, what if people don't believe in past lives? And I kind of assume that if you're here today with me, that that you believe in past lives, or maybe you are, um, curious about it and you're not sure whether you believe or not. So my answer to you would be, there's really only two choices. We can't be on the fence about this because in reality, there's either past lives and reincarnation do exist. It does happen. When we die, we can come back into a physical body. That's one side of the equation. Or it doesn't exist. And if it doesn't exist, if when we die, that's the end of everything, then we cannot, if that's what you believe, there's no reincarnation, then there could be some contradictions in your view of reality and your philosophy. And those contradictions would include, do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe in heaven and hell? Right? And if you do, then it means that you believe that we survive the death experience. In other words, um, when you die, we don't just poof out. It's just not nothing. Something happens. The spirit continues to live, and there's the possibility of ghosts haunting a house, or your parents who have passed might come around and talk with you. Maybe you believe in guardian angels. Well, if this is true, then it means that the spirit survives the death experience, which puts you back on the other side. Because if a spirit can connect with a physical body once, I mean, really, we have a spiritual body that has manifested and animates this physical body. And if that can happen once, if we are so clever that we're able to manifest, either, create, which I think is true, we create this physical body. Obviously, we use the physical materials of the egg and the sperm and genetic information and all of that. But we're able to materialize and enter into a physical body. If we can do it once, what would stop us from doing it again and again and again? Why not, right? So if you believe that when you die, it's nothing, then that really poses a lot of different questions, because um, then it means that for whatever length of time you live, that's it. And then poof, nothing. And by nothing, I mean you will not be aware that you ever lived. You'll not be aware of the physical world, or your children, or your parents, or your grandparents, or your experiences, or your moralities and values. Nothing. You'll be gone, dust. just nothing. So I think that people who claim that they don't know whether past lives exist or not, actually they would fall onto the side where they believe in that spiritual world out there, and therefore likely should be able to to understand that the reincarnation is a really simple extension of that spiritual belief. So I was thinking of one other thing that I was going to mention along those lines, but um, I don't know. Does anybody have any questions about that so far, or any other questions about the topic of past life regression? I know what I was going to say. Um, um, there are so many people that say that they don't believe in reincarnation or that it couldn't possibly exist. But my question is always, have you tried? Have you really tried it? Because a lot of people um, have that opinion or take that stance based on either folklore or religion or the attitudes of other people, or maybe only because they can't figure out how to believe in it or how does that fit into their philosophy. But unless you've tried it, unless you've really done research, I would question why you have a strong opinion. So if you find that people that you run into, maybe you believe in past lives, but other people don't, and maybe they criticize you or tease you about your beliefs, I would really question that if they haven't done the research and they haven't really um, dived into it and tried, then how could they form such a, well, really an important opinion or stance, philosophy about this important topic, right? So that was the conversation I had with my father when he was dying. He wasn't sure. He said, I just don't know if I can believe in that or not. And so that was the conversation that I had. And luckily he was willing to listen to me, because I said, maybe this isn't a topic that you're interested in, but it's really a big part of my world. And I will feel better if um, if I at least felt that I had warned you or talked to you about it, so that you would be prepared for what you're going to encounter when you get out there. And so, for me, it was really nice to have had that conversation. Anna, do we have any questions that are coming in?
Not from Facebook.
Okay. Anybody here have questions? Not yet, or yes? Not yet. Okay. Well, good thing I prepared some
I
notes.
have a question.
Yes, Gina.
So the story that you shared about your father, I think that's beautiful. And so, like, let's say that he did not believe in it. Do you think that maybe when he crossed over, he would have experienced an understanding of it?
Yeah, so one of the things that happens when people cross over, when they die, our beliefs are going to inform us as to what our experience is. And so a couple things that I would say about that question is, um, if we have a really strong belief in something, maybe that Jesus is going to be there waiting for me when I die, right? Or my grandmother is going to be there waiting for me when I die. Then, based on that, if that's a strong belief, then because entities and spirits that are in the astral are in an astral body, they're in an energetic form. So the person that you would say, "Oh, that's my grandmother," or "That's Jesus," is really in an energetic form. And so when we see somebody out there, If we believe for sure that grandma's going to be there, then when I see somebody, I may interpret that person as my grandmother. There may be some misinterpretations. If they believe that nothing happens, they may be so closed down that they don't really um, access their sensing modalities. So in the astral, we don't have eyes or ears or, touch, fingers and ways of feeling things. And so we have to do that through our clairsentient uh, sensory apparatus, right? So we're seeing with our clairvoyant eyes. And so if we're not really good at that, then when we die, we don't suddenly wake up and have all these senses. We may not be able to really feel much of anything or experience or see much of anything. And then we simply kind of float around and maybe drop down into another body and start all over again. Or, maybe there's a different experience. Maybe there are guides there that, work with that person until they can start to see or feel. Now, your question was really, um, will will they not have any experience, or will they wake up and understand that that's happening? Yes, hopefully they will have some awareness. At the very least, they'll be aware that they still are aware of themselves, even if they're not very aware of the environment or what else is happening around them, who's there, what's going on. Um, there is nothing physical in the astral. It's all energetic forms. They can be very formidable, um, depending on how much energy has been put into those forms. But there's no chairs and cars and houses and food and anything like that. So it's really using the subtle senses to be able to navigate that and um, be able to be aware of what's there. Both of my parents struggled with that, and excuse me, and I think maybe that's what Gina is referring to, is the struggle. I know my mother struggled. My father struggled even worse. He incarnated a few times, um, and then just stopped incarnating. But then he really kind of closed down everything and went into let's call it a depression. And he just kind of wrapped himself up and refused to deal with anything outside of him. And we were very concerned for quite a while. He did, with a lot of work, we got him to wake up and interact again, and he has reincarnated and he's doing better now. So, but my mother had a different experience. Both my parents, I was lucky because even though they didn't, uh, per se believe, they weren't like avid believers like I am, they were still um, open-minded, I guess we could say. So they were willing to listen or just, it's like, okay, well, we'll see, right? And so with my mother, um, she also struggled because she wasn't really in touch with her clairvoyance or, those clairsentient things. She wasn't really too prepared in that way. But again, my spirit guides worked with her and her spirit guides and, you know, kept working with her, touching her and talking to her and everything until she could finally understand what was going on. It was an interesting process, but I know that some people really, um, just think that when you die, you're suddenly going to be able to see down on earth and see what's going on and all of that. And that is possible, but not everybody can do it. Anna, you have a question.
Yes, I do. I have one from Facebook. It's from Dana Baker, and she said she's actually taking your course about hypnotherapy.
Yes. Hi, Dana.
And she's curious about if she needs to take a client deeper than you would in a routine session for a past life session.
Yeah. Yes. Again, it kind of depends on the client. If they're new to hypnotherapy and new to past life, um, we're always going to want to take them deeper for whatever work we do. Past life, it is good to take a little extra time and go a little deeper, because it's hard, especially in the beginning, to believe that what you're seeing is really memories. And, there's a lot of disbelief and that sort of thing. So the deeper you can take them without them going to sleep. But if you can take them nice and deep and, get them really connected to their unconscious and to those memories that are housed deeper inside, then it is going to flow a lot better. Do you still have another question? Because your hand is still up. Okay.
Yeah, it just came in.
Uh-huh.
So this is from Monica Stars, and she said, would having an unexpected medical issue pop up in this lifetime be connected to an unresolved issue from a past life?
Okay, so what I understand you're saying is it true that an issue in this life would be related to a past life issue? Yes. Oftentimes that's true. Very often. Hi, Monica. Thanks for being with us today. Um, so when we have traumas in other lifetimes, now imagine that everybody here has had an infinite number of past lives, all right? An infinite number. And imagine in how many of those past lives were we actually able to get therapy for the traumas that we experienced. And we've all been through traumas of war and crime and sickness and just, everything that, is a part of the human experience. We've probably been through those experiences. And yet we don't always have an opportunity to unpack all of that trauma and deal with it and resolve it and desensitize it. And so one of the the important pieces of work that I have contributed to this profession is the way that I do the healing work within the past life regression. So most practitioners and ways of being trained, you simply learn how to take people back into a past life and you get to see whatever those experiences were. And so the work that I developed was um, involves being able to do the healing work actually in those lifetimes, because um, all of those traumas, all of those memories, and along with talents and skills and learning and all the good stuff, is going to be all the bad stuff too in our subconscious mind. And it will start to surface in this lifetime if it hasn't been dealt with. So a really good example that I have of that is um, fibromyalgia. And I might have mentioned that in this group before, but when I've worked with fibromyalgia clients, I find that wherever the pain is in their body, there's layers and layers of past life trauma. And so I worked with one lady, and we just followed the trauma around her body, the pain points. So she came in, she was in pain all over her body. And during this session, then we were doing 2-hour sessions, and we did, 3 different lifetimes just in her shoulder of ways that she had been seriously injured, traumatized, or killed that involved that. And then the pain moved to another area, and we went in there, layers and layers of past lives. And we just did this all over. In that particular case, we only did the upper body. That's all the time we had to do all of this amazing work. But by the time she left, and even later when I talked to her, the pain in her upper body never returned. And so doctors are having a really hard time finding how to treat people with fibromyalgia, but maybe hypnotherapy and past life regression is the answer to that. Because if we can go in and correct that or desensitize all those past lives, it could be that it's our body's way of talking to us and telling us that this work needs to be done, that you need to connect with these um, memories and work with that trauma so that it's no longer festering inside of us. And it's a cautionary tale, because if we have trauma in this lifetime and we just lock it away, we put it in the closet and lock the doors, and just we're always holding that away from us, like I don't want to deal with that abuse or that that trauma, that issue, and we just keep putting it over there, it's still festering inside of us. It's still something that's working on us. And in future lifetimes, it's still going to be there. It's going to be something we still have to deal with. So in any given lifetime, it's really a good idea to take a look at those issues and work on them from this lifetime, but also go back into as many lifetimes as possible, regain the memories, but desensitize the trauma. Any questions? Any more questions? Yes, Simba.
I was wondering about our spirit guides, and maybe if you could talk about them, why some of us have seen them, some of us haven't, even though we're believers. And do the same ones incarnate with us each time we incarnate? Do we have the same spirit guides?
That is a huge topic. We could have a whole talk about that. So I think in our last call, we talked about the fact that not everybody has spirit guides. And even though there's a lot of philosophy out there that says, yes, we have spirit guides, or everybody has a spirit guide, my question to you is, how many people in the world would you trust to really run your life, to manage your spiritual growth? So there just are not that many qualified spirit guides to go around, but there are other spirits who do come around and help us from time to time, or maybe are around for a whole lifetime. Maybe it's an ancestor of some sort, but we have to realize that they also will be incarnating. They're going to need to incarnate too. So even the most advanced spirit guide is not always going to be there, because they need to be incarnating and doing their work as well. That said, when we do have spirit guides, there are spirit guides who will stay with us for a number of lifetimes. And there are other spirit guides that may come in for a given lifetime. And there may be some guides that are around just for certain parts of a life. And so, it depends. So I find it curious when I talk to somebody and they say, oh, 20 years ago, a psychic told me I had this spirit guide named such and such. And so I already know about my spirit guide, but I haven't been able to communicate with them. Well, we still need to go in there fresh. We can use hypnotherapy to determine that and to connect with spirit guides, but we still need to go in there with a fresh view of that, because that spirit guide may have moved on, especially if that person isn't really connecting and paying attention and working with the guide, or if they're just not really doing their spiritual work. The spirit guide may just say, well, I need to move on and work with somebody else, or, I got to move on, but I'll come back, or, just like, you think of our parents are really only with us for a period of time. or a teacher. Maybe we have a really strong teacher in school, but they're with us for a while, and then they kind of launch us off into our own world and our own career. Um, so, time in the astral is just a little bit different. So, for us to come through 10 lifetimes, the spirit guide, for them, it may just be a very short period of time. That time can be manipulated like that. But does that answer your question, Cinda? Kind of? Yeah. The important part about spirit guides is if you want to have a spirit guide, if you want to attract a high level guide, um, then you need to be really moving on your path. You need to be willing to do the work and willing to do what they're going to suggest you do. All right. And it might not always be easy. It's not like spirit guides are there to, clear the path and make it all easy. No, that's not their job. In fact, a spirit guide's job is to make sure that you are evolving as a spirit. And oftentimes we need hard lessons in order to be able to grow. If we're not getting our lessons the easy way, maybe it needs to be the hard way. And so they cannot shirk their duty and just say, oh, we're just going to make it all fine. It would be like, raising your kids and always tying their shoes for them. Are your kids going to learn how to tie their shoes? Or you're always doing their homework for them? Are they really going to learn the math problems? Are they integrating that information? So the job of a spirit guide is, tough love. Now they may find you a parking space, or they may find you, they may open up opportunities. Of course, why not? But their real job is to make sure that you're growing as a spirit. Anna, do you have another question?
I do. This is from Dana too, and she said, have you had a client that has been able to connect with the talent they had in a previous life and carried into this life?
Yes, I have a really good example of that. In fact, many. I've worked with I worked with a guitar player who went back to a lifetime where he played jazz guitar in the South, maybe at the turn of the 20th century, like 100 and some years ago. But one that really sticks with me is a woman who, her profession, she's retired now, but her profession this lifetime was in herbs and oils, and so herbs and oils. So tea, herbs and oils for healing and all of that sort of thing. And she went back to a lifetime where she lived in this tropical environment. And as she would walk through her neighborhood, through her environment, the foliage, the plants would just speak to her and, be like, hey, I'm ready to be harvested, and use me for that illness. I mean, it was just complete psychic connection between her and the plants. And so, obviously there was already a connection, or, a thread of similarity between her working, her profession this lifetime as an herbologist, and importing teas and working with, healing herbs and that sort of thing, and that past life. But what we did was we enhanced that. We spent time in the session bringing that talent into her, understanding what was being activated, like, third eye kind of stuff, but what was being activated when she was able to communicate so clearly with those plants. And so then I just saw her recently, because she's actually a friend of mine as well. And we talked about that lifetime, And she said it's amazing because she had, well, she just sold her house, but she had a huge property with gardens. And so she isn't quite living like that now. It was just too much. But I asked her, does that still work? Are you still able to do it? And she said, oh, yes. You know, there, when she looks at the plants, they'll turn colors for her or move in a certain way, or, you know, she's still able to have that communication. So it's very cool. And, you know, it would be great to go back to past lives and reconnect with all these different talents that you've had. Imagine an infinite number of lifetimes where you've developed certain talents, or you know how to ride horses, or do gardening, or build homes, or, you know, I mean, play musical instruments or dance a certain way. You know, all these talents that are out there that we've developed in other lifetimes. And, but here, you know, we think we have to learn it. Um, and in that regard, if you change your mindset, say you want to learn French, right? So you're there and you're hitting the books and you're repeating the sounds and you're struggling with it. Well, why not go back and do a few do a few past lives to lifetimes where you've spoken French and connect with it, even if you're, you know, you don't come out of it speaking French, but there's a familiarity. It's igniting those memories so that as you're reading and studying French, it's not a matter of learning it for the first time. It's a matter of recalling it, knowing that it's already all inside of you. So it's a, I was going to say a more fun, an easier, more enjoyable way of learning something new. You know, when you pick up that guitar, instead of struggling to learn it, just, you know, go back to some lifetimes where you were accomplished at that. So, any other questions? No more?
Not from Facebook and
No?
not from the chat.
Okay. I was just going to bring up one more issue or one more topic on this, and then we'll close for today. And so the topic is that when we live from the viewpoint of one singular lifetime, if you imagine your soul is like a huge diamond with an infinite number of facets, okay? And that's your whole soul. And every facet represents one of those infinite lifetimes you've had. So you have all those lifetimes when you've had all these talents, when you had these different traumas, all of this experience, but you're only aware of one tiny little facet. Just imagine that, you know, first of all, the wealth of information that is available to you already in your subconscious mind that you are not even tapping into. But the other part of that is that there's energy that is being held in each of those lifetimes. Energy that you know, I guess I can just say it's being held there. You know, just like the energy that you have in this lifetime, there's energy in those lifetimes. So when you connect to those different facets, not only are you learning more about who you are, what your purpose is, you know, what your talents are, healing the traumas that you've had, gaining the wisdom that you've already earned, so, you know, through all your struggles and challenges, all this wisdom that you've gained in all these lifetimes. But you're also tapping into that energy because it's laying there dormant until you connect with it. It's just over there behind the closet door, right? It's just over there. But once you start connecting with it, then it becomes a part of who you are now. And so it's what we call the density of our auric field. So if if it's just Mary Lee walking into the room, it's or defending myself in an argument or teaching a class or whatever, it's just me, right? I just have this one life view and this one life of energy. But if I've integrated all these other lifetimes into me, maybe not all of them, it's going to take a lifetime to visit them all, but let's say a dozen or 2 dozen lifetimes or 40 or 50 lifetimes, 100 lifetimes, if I'm aware of them and tapping into them and making use of them, then I have that energetic field with me in the present right now. All right, it's much more powerful. It's the protection against just passing negativity I'm much more protected from that. There's just more energy showing up when I have all of that wrapped around me. Again, with the confidence, the presence of being, and the energetic field. So it's really, really important. Like the diamond metaphor is fun because, I tell people, what would you think if your fiance gave you a diamond and it only had one facet, right? It's not going to sparkle very well. So, you lose the color and the luster and the sparkle and the radiance. So that's like your soul. So the more that you connect to all those other facets and integrate that into who you are, then the more you're going to sparkle and radiate or be radiant, not radiate, but you'll radiate that energy. So that's all for me today, unless anybody has questions. I do want to mention while we're here, I want to mention that I am going to be doing, I have been offering trainings in hypnotherapy and past life regression for over 20 years. I trained many hundreds of people at Bastyr University over several years and at Bellevue College. And all of my trainings now are online on teachable.com. And we'll post, well, on Facebook, you'll see it in the events as well. We'll post the training there, but you can go to my website, maryleelabay.com, go to my calendar, and yes, I have updated the dates. Anyway, so online course is available all the time, and I'm teaching hypnotherapy, NLP, and a full past life and between life training. But the calls, there are 21 hours of Zoom calls that are connected to that training that are there for you, that are included. You can take the training anytime, but if you want to participate in the next round of calls, you'll want to register soon. So anyway, Anna, anything else from your end?
No, we just have a great comment from Brenna Leonard. And she said, thank you, Mary Lee, and everyone else. Mary Lee's trainings are amazing and so digestible, super fun, and informative. So that's a great comment.
Oh, great. Thank you, Brenna. Thanks for being here today. I can't see the people that are on Facebook. All I can see are the people on Zoom. But anyway, thank you, Brenna. And thank you, everybody, for being here today. We'll be here again next Wednesday at noon. And I'll look forward to seeing you all then. And have a happy rest of your week.
Thank you, Mary.
See you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.